Okay, well, we talk about the economy, we talk about business, we talk about survival, we talk about revival, and me and Anurag have been doing this for quite some time now. Interesting debates, interesting thoughts, and avant-garde suggestions have spurred out of this discussion, which we've been having very regularly. But the fact of the matter is that the economy is still looking at perhaps a nosedive when the GDP numbers will be declared next. When we talk about demand, it's not gone up, really much. You talk about the auto sector, you talk about some of the other ailing sectors. It's a dismal situation, but the light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train. It's actually a ray of hope, which can be worked upon by the young minds who join us on this very invigorating show tonight. And let me introduce them one by one and also take in their suggestions and what they think and what they can do to revive the Indian economy. I'm sure the people that matter in the government are perhaps listening to them and they will take their suggestions very seriously. So, in no particular order, let me introduce our panelists for today. Mr. Sarthak Nayak, advocate of the Supreme Court, joins us on the show. Well, we can use him from time to time, I can tell you that. Mr. Vivan Sharan, partner with Kwan Advisory Services, also joins us on the program. Mr. Saket Modi, co-founder and CEO of Lucidius, also joins us. I beg your pardon if any of my pronunciations are not up to the mark. Mr. Sahan Suman K, CEO of Bubble Network and Director of SSK Capital, also joins us on the program. Mr. Sumit Ghosh, co-founder and Chief Product Officer for the Chingari app. Well, that is something that is an app which is going to be talked about a lot, not only in this show, but other social media platforms as well. And Ms. Madhu Agarwal, COO of Clever Harvey, also joins us on the platform. Last but by no means the least, Dr. Anurag Batra, my partner in crime, somebody who's been bailing me out of some of these tough business bounces that have been thrown at me from time to time. Chairman and editor-in-chief of Business World and Exchange for Media Group. Mr. Sarthak Nayak, let me start by you. Well, you belong to the legal stratosphere of the world and the Indian economy, but at the same time, everybody's got an opinion. Just like a nose, everybody has an opinion about where the economy is today. What do you think is happening with the Indian economy today? Obviously, you will hear a lot about demand not being up to the mark. You will hear about the pandemic not, at its conclusive stage. There is a vaccine which is in works, but by the time it's rolled out and the bales are available, Indian economy would have in fact taken a lot more beating by then. In your assessment, your subjective assessment, where do we stand today? And has the government done enough to salvage this abysmal situation?
First of all, let me tell you, COVID-19 is being affected by 210 countries. And it was only declared as a pandemic in March 11, 2020. Therefore, it has not only affected the livelihood, the lives of people generally in India, but all over the world. But in this situation, I remember the age-old adage that success is how high you bounce when you fall. And Anurag often says that it is your attitude, not the aptitude, which decides the altitude of your life. What is the difference between this setup of government and the past ones? I would like to differentiate quickly. Our Prime Minister, we must be thankful to him. We must be grateful to him for three things. Number one, for instilling the faith in the common man that this situation can be tackled from mental point of view. He has given a tremendous amount of strength to the general public by time and again coming in TV and try to motivate, which normally the Prime Ministers in the past haven't done a direct one-on-one interaction. Number two, the Prime Minister has also tried to approach the matter in a very broad and scientific manner. It is not a very union-centric approach. Number three, if you look at the concept of federalism, the concept of constitutional federalism has been respected tremendously in this pandemic. Therefore, if you see how we are tackling with this pandemic, everybody is contributing equally. Now, as far as European countries are concerned, only yesterday, the European Union met and more than 26 countries were participant. And it was only yesterday, if you read the statement of Charles Michael, who was heading the meeting, only yesterday they said that 750 billion pound is being given to the people of Europe, and particularly a high amount of money will be given in the form of grant to Italy and Spain. But our country has decided to give 2 lakh crores 2 months back, and majority of the money was infused in the form of credit directly to the people. Money was directly given to the working class, and the stakeholders of the society were concerned were talked to and they were spoken to before this step was taken. But from legal point of view, I would like to tell you that a lot of foreign domestic investment is going to come to India because people have shut their door to China because of three factors. Number one, the ease of doing business in India has been tremendously improved if you see the statistics since last 5 years. Number two, the infrastructure of India as far as the biological, as far as the placement of India, strategic placement of India is concerned, surrounded by the oceans all round, naturally India is a good destination. And third, and the crucial factor, in India you get a tremendous amount of cheap labor. Therefore, as far as market is concerned, we all are standing near the door. The moment the vaccine comes, the moment there is some improvement, we are going to knock the door off and enter inside. Therefore, as far as economy is concerned, it will be revived. There is no doubt about it. But for that, we also need to take care of two factors. Number one, if you want me to elaborate it, I will tell it in a broad and elaborate manner. If quickly you want me to
please keep it short, keep it simple. We have other panelists to accommodate as well. Keep it short.
Two things we need to concentrate. Number one, the mental health of the population. Under these circumstances, in lockdown, when people are staying at home, everybody is talking about Sushant Singh Rajput and people committing suicide. That is the consequence. But we must address the reason. The reason is people are mentally unwell, and we have an act. We have a Mental Health Act of 2018. Therefore, the Mental Health Act of 2018 needs to be understood by each and every population of this country. It says that people with mentally unwell mindset, they are not mentally retarded. They need to be respected. Their dignity has to be protected. They have a right to be treated. So these population who contribute towards the progress of this country, they have to be respected. Number one. Number two, quickly, I would like to make a broader point. Number two, 70% of the...
We're going off the rails now. Okay, quickly.
70% of the labor in all the PSUs are contractual. If you look at PSUs of ONGC, NTPC, IOCL, they all are contractual labor. We have a contractual labor act which is discarded and thrown in utter dustbin by the big owners. Therefore, you need to read each and every provision of the Contractual Labor Board Act. It has to be respected. There has to be a register. Their timing needs to be fixed, and they should not be exploited.
Sarthak, if I did not know that you were a lawyer, I would have guessed by now that you are a good one at that. So that's a compliment.
Sarthak, we will come to you, and I wanted to think about, Sarthak just wrote a piece for Business World on how the mental health of lawyers, in the last 2 weeks, 4 lawyers died, one of COVID, and 3 young lawyers committed suicide. So he wrote a piece for us. But I want to come back to you, the amount of litigation that this dysfunctional situation has thrown in, whether it's the least discount renting, whether it's between employees and employers. So we'll come back to that. At this point, let me bring in Saket. Saket, Vineet, I want to say this is the youngest panel we've had. The average age is possibly less than 30. And I can tell you there are billionaires in the making in a real way.
I feel old. I feel old, Anurag, being here.
Yeah. Yes. But I genuinely mean it. And these guys, in a way, have benefited from COVID. All these companies represented on this panel are actually doing much better post-COVID than they were doing, because there are industries that are helping us fight COVID. So, Saket, you're in the cybersecurity domain. You're a very large company. Very good quality of mentors and investors, and you've been at it for almost 10 years now, right?
8 years. Yeah.
Right? How many?
8 years.
8 years. Tell us, how do you see the economic stimulus? Should entrepreneurs actually look at an economic stimulus, or should they be Atmanirbhar? And where do you see the economy going and the impact on your own sector?
Certainly. First of all, Anurag sir, Vineet, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's truly an honor to be sharing this screen with you. Coming to the point around, the economic stimulus and where do I see the economy going? As you very rightly said, sir, I've been one of the fortunate ones because of COVID. I am still 22 days into a new quarter. My last quarter was the best quarter we've ever had in the history of our company, both in terms of order bookings and revenue bookings, because cybersecurity is something which is not only the demand's gone up, but it's here to stay because of the dependence on digital, irrespective of the type of business that you belong to. and also on your personal side. So we've been the fortunate ones. About the point about the economic stimulus and Atmanirbharta, sir, one of the very unique things which I see as a stark difference, because I'm based out of Palo Alto. I'm obviously born and brought up in India, so I'm fortunate to actually see both the economies fairly closely in the US and in India. And one of the unique things that I see, right? I mean, probably 5 years back or 10 years back, when you started a company, you called it an MSME. Today, when you start a company, it's called a startup. Now, there is really no difference between the two when you talk about the revenue or you talk about the scale and size. But the difference between an MSME and a startup is fundamentally boils down to a startup uses technology in the centerpiece of its business plan, while an MSME would be generally looked at as a traditional manufacturing or a traditional services company that would be there. Now, the reason I brought that up is I think moving forward, and I want to draw a stark comparison with the United States of America. We've been extremely fortunate as a country that we've got a central, driven from the top, digital transformation plan. Whether it's Digital India, whether it's our Prime Minister using. I remember in my last birthday, I got an automated email from the Prime Minister wishing me happy birthday. Now, obviously, I know it was not him, but the extent at which the 70-year-old Prime Minister actually uses the internet, it's phenomenal. It's tremendous, and that really sends the signal where when we want to make an economy, we want to make a technology-driven company. It's really taken very well versus even the United States, which today does not have a digital plan in any way. When you look at it, and so is the startups, right? I mean, India obviously has done so much in terms of Startup India, Stand Up India, and I'm comparing it with United States not for any reason, but it is the most developed economy on the planet. And therefore, when you compare that to what India's been doing, it's just incredible to see, India being so effective in both digital and the startup side, which is there. And therefore, the stimulus when it comes to MSMEs and young companies, I mean, look, that's always a welcome move, right? Because as a small company, you're very, very dependent, in most cases, hand to mouth when it comes to, your expenses versus what comes as an income. Although I said my last quarter was the best quarter we've ever had, but the cash flow is a problem. I've got a lot of orders, but all of them have come back and said, we'll pay you money 3 months later or 6 months later. As a startup, you don't have a problem with that. You want that to happen because you're at least getting the order. But on the other side, the cash is not coming in the bank because it's almost like stop. And I'm not just saying this for India. This is again global because we work globally. So coming back, any kind of a stimulus is a welcome move, even if it's a loan which can be repaid later when the economy restarts, and going to smaller companies which can now be identified thanks to a more structured ROC and MCA, where the size of companies or even the direct benefit schemes for individuals. I think these are all very, very positive moves which the government has been able to take thanks to technology enablement that it's been driving for the last 3 years. So
Okay,
Mr. Vivan Sharan, Sharan, let's get a.
I just wanted to say, I like calling people and wishing them and showing up. So you know that, right? But technology intervention will help India's GDP grow. Is the point you're trying to make? And for certain sectors, COVID has been a. Vivan, you're a writer. You're an author. For the last 10 years, you've been writing columns in almost all leading business and journal interest newspapers, website. You published a book on policy. Tell us, where do you see the Indian economy going, and what are the policy initiatives that have still not been unleashed, which can unlock the economy? Vivan Sharan.
So, Vivan, and also, and just to amplify Anurag's question, do you think that the pandemic has been a boon or a bane for authors such as you?
Oh, definitely a bane for authors, because if publishers don't get paid, authors don't get paid, and ebooks are taking off, but they haven't reached escape velocity yet. And if you talk to any publisher, I think most of them are worse off than they were before. But coming back to and trying to link a little bit between what people have said and the questions you asked me, there are two ways to revive consumer demand. One is to provide the kind of credit support we're providing, and the other is to provide direct income support. We chose to do the former, and be that as it may, we therefore need to look at what other levers we have to either bring costs down of consumption so that demand meets a new price point, or innovation to make consumers buy what they thought, what they don't know they need, but now they may consider buying. And to this end, to address this latter paradigm, given that we are not going down the income support route like the UK has, which was referred to earlier, and our fiscal situation is constrained, I would suggest three areas where clear recommendations can be made to government. One is to bring the cost of business down. This is through ease of doing business and more than just in terms of rankings, but actually on the
When
ground.
you say cost of doing business down, bring the cost of capital down. Is that what you mean?
So also get government out of the way wherever it adds a cost. So there is a cabinet proposal in the works for reduction of AGR license fee to ₹1 for internet service providers. That's great. There is no reason why today, when we know that the internet stimulates growth, that we should be auctioning spectrum at rates which are unheard of in other comparable countries. And no reason why we should be taxing in cascading tax structures companies that are providing us this pipeline infrastructure, as we've come to find out in this COVID age. So get the government out of, reduce government costs wherever possible, wherever license fees, permissions, registration fees, including, if I may add, Mr. Malhotra, even for TV, there are a litany of charges that TV distributors pay to government today, ranging from teleport fees to uplinking fees to different registration fees. Let's do away with all of that, because this is a time for businesses to work in an unfettered fashion, unfettered by government fees, and that also brings down the entry barrier that small businesses may have into these areas. The second is looking at regulation, and the previous speaker mentioned that India has a digital plan. I don't really see the digital plan. I see an ambition. I don't see plan and strategy. And let me give you an instance of that. Today, we are discussing the proposition that there will be a consumer protection regulator, there will be a personal data protection regulator, there will be a non-personal data protection regulator, there will be an e-commerce regulator, and we already have a Competition Commission of India, and we have a Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. It is absolutely crazy, and I'm not using this word lightly, for us to consider the prospect of having 6 or 7 regulators in the digital economy, pulling different strings, pulling people in different parts, and trying to achieve some sort of a level.
Just to support what
Vivan, we just have a couple of minutes to go for the break, and before we do that, let me just get a quick response from Mr. Sahan as well. Sahan, your assessment of where the economy is going. I was reading an article just recently, as yesterday, which said that instead of becoming a solution, the banking system is becoming a problem for the economy. Where do you stand on that? And do you think that the stimulus package, which was put up by the government, is a long-lasting avenue of hope for especially MSMEs as yourself?
I mean, there's a lot of debate on that, especially when you look at the banking industry. I want to break it down. We need to understand the fact that there's a huge amount of uncertainty in the market. And that's a big fear for SMEs, especially because, India doesn't have businesses which are funded heavily in terms of, they're not capitalized as much as countries abroad. So that makes a big problem, especially unprecedented financial stress for SMEs and companies with weaker balance sheets. They might be able to sustain in the small run. And obviously the government's doing its part, and it's amazing to see that. But obviously it's a temporary fix. But what you also see in the digital space is, speaking for my industry, the demand has grown drastically big. I agree to a lot of points which Saket had said. We've had tremendous sales in the last month, but we've also seen a huge amount of demand, the change in demand. We had almost 80 to 20% B2C and B2B businesses, but right now we see a huge amount of B2B businesses, companies for manufacturing, distribution, agro industry, getting into family businesses, getting into digital spaces, which before probably even 10 to 20% of their funds were not diverted here. So keeping this in mind, we also need to understand 3 things. One is what we wanted to achieve in, let's say, 3 to 4 years, is getting accelerated. Any entrepreneur, irrespective of what you're doing, like it's table stakes to go online. And if you look at an example of Nike's US predictions of 2023 in online sales, they hit it this quarter. And that's how much the demand is changing. But again, when you look at it from a B2C physical establishments, and when you look at restaurants, Swiggy and Zomato put out numbers saying 1 out of 3 restaurants which are paused are not even going to come back. So having this in mind, I would say two things which I would look at. One is understanding the deeply rooted problem. One is being the lack of disposable income or the fear of the consumer saying they want to spend.
Anurag, a bunch of optimistic panelists today with us. We've had a mix over the past, but so far it's the most optimistic and the youngest also. And this is something which you were also discussing during the break.
Yes, Vineet. You know why I say it is important is one, they really represent the real India. One of the reasons, I mean, I'm very mindful of the loss of life and livelihood, but we have suffered lesser casualties is because we are a very young population. Also, these are the people who will build the companies which will pull up the GDP. So I'm really excited about having young people. And Vineet, I keep saying for the last 20 years, the role of media is to discover new leaders. While we get the big leaders all the time, these are emerging leaders, if I may say, and they're doing very well. I know each one's sphere of work. Madhu, coming to you, EduTech has really kind of blossomed in COVID times. Tell us what has been the impact of COVID on your business? Where do you see the economy going? And do you have a point of view on the India-China issue?
Sure. So I think starting with what's been the impact on EdTech, like you said, it's been a boon for EdTech. You know, in many ways, the education sector was due for reform 5 years ago. And the kind of sluggishness we would see in the adoption of technology in education, despite its many benefits, it's like in 5 weeks, we've covered more ground than we have in the last 5 years. And for us, in many ways, because we offer these online programs to students, we've seen a lot of demand from parents and students in wanting to have enrichment and real-world development of skills for students during the lockdown. But I think on a more serious note, for the formal education sector, it's been a little more challenging. So if we look at the fact that, you know, there was a lot of confusion around different government orders saying, do I pay school fees? What can schools really charge? And before the break, we were talking a lot about what's been the stimulus. And one of the things that really bothers me is that, yes, the government has a supply side stimulus, but don't forget, money goes around in a circle in the economy. So if the government suddenly puts out orders saying, parents, you can stop paying fees, well, how does the school pay the teachers? And if the school can't pay the teachers, then how do we continue maintaining that demand side support we need in the economy in these times? So for the formal education sector, I think the biggest challenge right now is to not have sort of populist policies coming from the government, but, you know, for the government to not specifically meddle in that and let each school and parent have their own negotiation and let the money keep flowing as it needs to through that system. I also think that it offers an amazing opportunity, which the CBSE is taking, to say, let's relook at what the curriculum really means. So I have a 12-year-old cousin, and he often says a lot of them will switch off their video and just put their status as connecting, ... Which really goes to say that, you know, when the physical classroom is gone, you can't force a child to sit there and learn. That stick of Betho Suno is gone. So we really need to up our game on education and make it something which a child wants to learn, because they now have a choice to come to class or not come to class. And in that sense, it's a wonderful opportunity to revamp our curriculum and think about, are we teaching a child what they really want to learn? And for example, with every batch of students, we run a survey to ask, what do you want to learn that's not being taught in school today? And they say things like budgeting. How do I manage my time? How do I, you know, be a good brother? How do I behave when I go on my first date? How does the world work? Why is there so much income inequality?
Life skills.
So life skills, and that's what kids are asking for. So let's.
Madhu, also tell us. Do you think that the reach of online education is perhaps more important than the concept itself? I'm talking about keeping the rural population of children in mind.
So I think the reach is, you're right, very, very important. But I'm sure that even those, I mean, absolutely everyone.
But it's absent. But it's absent. But it's absent. It's not there. It's zilch. Only 4% of the rural population has access to online education. How do you plan to change about that? What are your ideas? And like Anurag said, that you are the future leaders. Perhaps the current leaders are watching, and they might take your suggestion seriously.
So I was really heartened to see that tools like YouTube are being used to reach students where we can't have a Zoom call with 1:1 video conferencing. Asynchronous learning through a medium like YouTube, where they've got excellent CDNs and video compression technology, can reach them. We've worked with the entrepreneurship mindset development curriculum that the Delhi government is running. And I honestly thought in the wake of COVID, all of that would be scrapped. I was amazed to find that they've continued running that. And we've been working with them to adapt to using Google Forms so that we can assess what's been the impact of that curriculum on these students. So I actually think the government's doing a great job in reaching students as much as possible, and they're being innovative in being able to use YouTube and commonly open technology like Google Forms to be able to reach them. One aspect that I think COVID-19 will bring out is, for the longest time, online education has been taxed at 18% on GST, whereas formal schooling is exempt from GST. Or, textbook providers, school bus providers are exempt from GST. And I think this is a time for the policymakers to think about that. Is there really a reason to treat these two differently?
Good. So, by the way, Madhu, we have a BW education community, a very large community, one of our most active community. And every Wednesday, I do a Wednesday wisdom just before. And for the last 7 weeks, I've focused on the B school of the future. So some of the questions that you raised, what do B schools bring? What are students looking at? What are the recruiters looking at? How has that changed? So I kind of understand where you're coming from. Sumit, you're possibly the biggest beneficiary of what's happened in the last week with COVID, what's happened on the border. Tell us one, what have you done to kind of pivot, grow, apart from the fact that the environment surrounded gave you an opportunity. For viewers, Chingari is an app that after the ban of TikTok has really grown and continues to grow. And it is some way representative of the Indian ambition to dominate the global market space in products and services. So Sumit, your opening comments on the economy, and what have you done as a company to capitalize on the opportunity you got?
Sure. I think for us, COVID has not been a real game changer. I mean, we were experiencing pre-COVID, post-COVID was very similar in terms of users and traffic. But the Chinese angle and the Chinese aggression on our borders, and especially the vocal for local and Atmanirbhar Bharat slogan and those thoughts by the Prime Minister Modi, that really catapulted us. And obviously the 59 Chinese apps ban, that projected us to a very different orbit where we are today. I think this is a really a very exciting times for Indian entrepreneurs, especially in these category of apps. So I think every app category that got banned, not just the social. I mean, there were file sharing and other apps also. Each category would produce an unicorn, in itself. And
these days, that Sumit, we don't use the words unicorn. We use the word proficons. Profitable unicorns.
Yeah, profit. Okay, so it will create proficons, going ahead. And obviously, I mean, if you see economically, I mean, Western companies like Facebook, Instagram, these are highly profitable companies. Even Chinese giants, Tencent, Baidu, even ByteDance, they have been hugely profitable. Add a lot of GDP to China's and US's economy. I mean, these Indian companies or app companies which grow now will definitely be able to contribute a lot in terms of adding to our Indian GDP. And I'm sure all these entrepreneurs have global ambitions, not just be limited to India, but build the India story. And this is the time. I mean, China has been like protectionist about their economy. Like they were never, they never allowed a Facebook to be the Facebook of China, or they never allowed the Google to be the Google of China. And that's the reason why Chinese tech companies were able to, and they were able to build that moat and tech and then build global companies out of China. I think this is the time. Now the time has come. Our government has given us the opportunity for India to do the very same, and put all of us in the global map, the global tech map.
Sumit, I agree with you that I've been saying for 2-3 years that the Indian entrepreneurs don't have the advantage of Chinese entrepreneurs in terms of cost of capital, in terms of government support, in terms of creating natural advantages by blocking others. But one common advantage is China is a big market for all those products. Similarly, in India, we have a big market. So that's a common, that is an advantage that creates the big company. What I want to know from you is, what as an entrepreneur, what is your advice, Sumit, to entrepreneurs who want to pivot, who want to orbit change? In your case, it's been divine intervention. But when the divine intervention doesn't exist, what does an entrepreneur do?
So entrepreneur is someone who doesn't give up. I mean, so we have been building this app before TikTok came to India. I mean, prior to that, we have been building, and even after TikTok came in and put in $500 million in the Indian economy, we didn't give up. We kept on building. So I think that is very crucial for an entrepreneur, that if you have great and you have a vision about building something, just keep doing it. Like, believe in your idea, believe in your product, and keep building. So there is a saying in Hindi, when you are really, really interested in doing something, puri kainat chahti hai ki aap wo karo.
And the universe conspires to make it happen.
Yes, the universe conspires.
It's a quote from Paulo Coelho's book called The Alchemist.
Yes, absolutely.
So your time will come. Just keep hustling, keep grinding, keep building, and eventually you will succeed. That's my message to all our Indian entrepreneurs.
Vivan, you're making a very important point, and I wanted to support your point. Last week, me and Rishabh at NEWSX did a show on GIFT, and the fact is, GIFT did not take off because there were multiple regulators. Any new entrant had to, even BSC. So finally, in the financial services, the government has appointed a singular unified regulator. So I think the point you're making for a unified regulator, because today there is interface between various domains. Traditionally you would say it's telecom, it's media, it's technology, TMT. Today, although we have kind of come together. So you were making some very important points when we went to the other panelists. So Vivan, can you make your final point when you were making?
Yes, thank you. Although India has changed tremendously, politically, socially, culturally, one thing has remained static, and that is the lack of attention, investment, and care given to policy and legal regulatory design. So today you have regulators that are being designed from scratch for new economies, the types represented by Chingari and others. And the design principles are borrowed from the 90s, 80s, 70s. What is the case today to transfer legacy principles of control, license, regulatory arbitrage in some cases to this new paradigm that we want to aspire towards?
I would say national security challenges. Data is important.
Mr. Batra, I will tell you about national security. We have not, over the last 75 years, been able to create proper national security legislation. Why? We have a nationalist government in power. We must create proper national security legislation where the determinations around national security can be made clearly, so that apps like Chingari and others, other new entrants, old entrants, can play on a level playing field where they know where they stand, where there is legal clarity, where there is due process. And what distinguishes us from China, which you forgot to mention, although you mentioned the commonality about markets, is that we have judicial process, due process.
We have a judicial process, we have a democracy, we have the will of the people, unlike, of course, that's a given.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, coming to you, Saket, you talked about cash flow issues. The whole impetus that came in the, so forth. Having done that, where do you see the Indian economy in the next 3 months? Do you see it tepid? Do you see it doing well, or do you see it even being worse?
To my understanding, sir, I personally feel that it should start seeing some very positive signs for a simple reason. If you see, and this was a very interesting slide from Masayoshi Son's, annual shareholders meet a couple of months back, where he said the recession in the beginning of 1900 took 25 years for the stock market to come back where it was. And if you see today, NASDAQ and most stock markets, right, they're almost there where they were before the recession.
So, Saket, I have to caution. So, I know your Maharshi-san is legendary, but there is always a disconnect. We could do a whole show on the disconnect between the stock market and real market, or what I call street market. There is I mean, look at the quarterly results of Indian companies. Some of their stocks have gone up. I don't know why. I mean, it shouldn't be like that. Because there is such a second. I'm not sure Maharshi-san in the last 2 years has made very good bets. I mean, Ritesh Agarwal of Oyo is a great bet. But look at what has happened to WeWork. And we can go on about some other bets, but that doesn't take away from
the reason I quoted that is when you talk about a bad economy, the first metric you say is look at how bad the stock market is. So I'm just saying in general,
it's like saying valuations are a barometer for companies doing well. No. It's almost like saying that, which is not true. Possibly your company that makes real money with real clients, and for the first time, me and Vinny have been saying in the last 2 months, for the first time, entrepreneurs are saying cost should be lesser than revenue. I mean, it's that basic, but it wasn't the founding principle of a company. So having said that, I mean, I want to understand, why do you feel it will be better?
The only reason I said that is because I feel the time to recovery, not just for the economy, for everything is coming down. Whether it's cricket, where you now have from a 5-day match to a T20 matches, which are the norm of the future, exactly in the same way. And what that means is that we'll come back soon. But then I feel these fluctuations will keep happening because there will be other bumps which will come, through which it will even fall down very soon because of the information percolation, which is so fast and so easy for everybody to read. And before you know it, also the stocks have already suffered or gained where it can be absolutely fake information. So I just
when you're talking of bankers like John Chambers, I must tell our viewers, I don't know it's public. John Chambers is an investor in Saket's company. He's the former chairman of Cisco, a legendary figure in the tech industry, and he has a Rolodex of very legendary investors in his company. So when you talk to them, what do they say to you?
So if I go back when the COVID, thing started, first of all, John started doing a weekly call with me. So we've been doing almost hourly call on a weekly basis. Most of my tough decisions, the reason my life is so simple, so you spoke about being young, is when you have mentors like him, you can just run all tough decisions through him. We made a come out stronger plan. So we actually took an assumption that it's going to be a lockdown for 6 months. So we had 3 options: 3-month lockdown, 6-month lockdown, and 9-month lockdown. And we said, let's assume there'll be a 6-month lockdown. We completely revised our annual operating plan. We said, what does coming out on the other side stronger look like? We jotted down exactly 10 points, that these are the 10 things, if we are able to do this during the lockdown, and this is all on the product side, on the go-to-market side, the training of the salespeople, enabling channel partners, and even revenue. So we said, if we are able to do these things, we think that we would have come out much stronger. And that actually gave the whole team, and I have a team of close to 200 people, they all now had a North Star that, look, we know it's COVID, it's tough times, but this is what we need to do to come out stronger. And I can say that that's worked like charm for us. And things have been incredible. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sarthak, we have about 5 minutes, Anurag, remaining.
Yeah. Sarthak, litigation in next 2-3 months. Are we going to see over the next 2-3 months, 6 months, unprecedented litigation in every high court, possibly in Supreme Court, and definitely in district courts? Is that a reality, or it's just something we are exaggerating? Sarthak Naik? Sarthak, I think we kind of lost him.
There is going to be a tremendous amount of rise in litigation in near future, and especially as far as the doctrine of force majeure is concerned, doctrine of frustration is concerned, Rent Control Act. In these branches of law, labor law, there is going to be a tremendous amount of litigation. But at this juncture, let me tell you, we must understand as a legal community that advocacy profession is not something business. we should not try to derive business out of the situation and take advantage of the situation. Therefore, this is a situation in which we as a community must rise to the occasion, and whenever there is a crisis, which is economic or spiritual or pandemic or an act of God, I remember the Sashta Adhyaya of Gita. I would like to immediately quote: Anasritam karma phalang karjam karma kariti ja sa sannyasi cha jogi sa na nirbhignam chakriya jang sannyasa samiti prahu jogam tang vidhi pandava na yastang nyasastang sankalpa jogi bahite kanthan. Therefore, we will do our duty. God is there to take care of us. If everybody will take care of their mental health as well as do their prescribed duty, automatically the economy will revive. We just need to be patient. Therefore, patience is bitter, but the fruit will be definitely sweeter.
And you see,
okay, that's a fair thought, but Sarthak also tell us we have. Okay, 1 second, Anurag. We only 3 minutes left onto this discussion. Let's start with our customary. Let's start with our customary question, Sarthak. Okay. Where do you think the economy is going to be in the next 60 to 90 days? Is it going to be a positive or a negative trend?
I think it's a very.
Let Sarthak reply. Then we go to
Madhu. It's a very hypothetical question.
Quickly.
It depends on the political will as well as the each and every individuals of this country. Whatever the direction the Prime Minister is showing us, it also depends on an individual will how we are operating as the citizens of this country.
But Sarthak, tell us simple. You have 3 choices. Good. That means better than today, same as today? Or
absolutely. Today? Every day we are making progress. And I personally believe that we are going towards upward curve. Therefore, 3 months from now...
Good. In what are we going on in upward curve, Sarthak?
Absolutely. There is no doubt about it. There should not be doubt in anybody's mind. We are progressing. How far the progress will be there, we have to wait and watch.
And Sarthak, will
Madhu, your thoughts?
Will tools like mediation... India has had mediation centers for a long time, but they have not been utilized a lot. Do you think in post-COVID times, mediation is a tool to solve business disputes will go up?
Not only mediation, I personally believe that mediation, conciliation, arbitration, and all kind of amicable settlement will be the call for the day.
Okay.
But it won't be used in criminal cases.
Okay.
All right. Just a couple of minutes left. Madhu, same question. Answer. Please keep it concise.
Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I actually think it'll get worse because a lot of MSMEs are now running out of their buffer. Over the next 3 months, we're going to see that buffer wear out, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
Okay. Shahan?
Okay.
So I would say that if you look at the top of the pyramid, the top has been pinched. It has to trickle down. I think there is still a lot of ineffective.
You're referring to Mr. Mukesh Ambani. Geo effect.
Having that said, I think SMEs will do better because the capital is low, but larger businesses will struggle because their burn rate is growing day by day.
Fantastic point, Shahan. Sumit, your final view?
I think, the next 3 months would be challenging, but eventually it will grow. I have a similar view, yeah.
Okay, Saket Modi.
I think it's going to be positive because it's been a while that people have known that this problem exists. And every day when we get back to normal, because I feel we are already at the lowest point, things start becoming better.
Okay. Vivan Sharan, your final word. Vivan?
I second Madhu.
Which you feel that they will get worse before they get better, right? So you feel the next 3 months will be tough. I wish you luck as young entrepreneurs who are building companies, products, services that will help an average Indian and contributing to the economy through your own act of creative entrepreneurs, whether you're a lawyer or you're a think tank like Vivan, or you're a cybersecurity company like Saket, or you're a marketing services company.
All right, folks, we have run out of time. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this wonderful debate. It was great having you. And folks watching this special show.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NEWSX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.